I will be doing a status update for the LiquidSky 2.0, kind of where the future is going to be going with LiquidSky, and some thoughts from my testing so far with the new client. Just a quick update on the Provoking Tech channel. I will have, I've already kind of recorded and done benchmarks for two different programs. The first is Cinebench, which does give some pretty good insight for people that are going to be possibly doing video rendering or rendering that is CPU bound in the new client. So if you're not using it for non-gaming purposes, there's some pretty good information there for you. And then with Metro Last Light, some very interesting information. Just a quick takeaway before the video is actually released. My analysis so far is leading strongly to recommending the Pro performance tier. The Elite doesn't have massive gains over the Pro for gaming purposes so far in my testing. Your actual end result might differ a little bit, and I have only tested, the only game I've tested right now is Metro Last Light, so other games might have weird benefits that I'm not seeing in what I've tested so far. But so far, my strong recommendation is to try out Pro first and kind of base your experience upon that, because I'm not seeing a lot of benefits for Elite, especially for the doubling of the cost for running in Elite. So some news from the Twitch stream yesterday. I want to summarize that because it was a pretty long Twitch stream and kind of get you the straight up details for the future of LiquidSky. So the Android and Mac clients are the next two clients to be released. Linux will be sometime after that, but it's not really in the near future vision. So they're thinking that the clients themselves will start rolling out roughly at the 4-week mark for the first one, and Android will be the first out of the Android and Mac duo to be released. So maybe in about 4 weeks from now, we'll see the Android client. Beyond that, the primary goal though right now is just to be tackling bugs. Bug fixes. It seemed like it was the thing that everybody's focusing on right now. There's a ton of features that they have either built up, ready to grow pretty much, or almost ready to deploy, that they've even done demonstrations for, such as Twitch, one-click Twitch streaming, the Windows Store client, and so on and so forth. But they want to get the bugs fixed, then roll out the Android client, the Mac client, and then they're going to start releasing all those features is what they're currently planning on. So after the Mac client is released, some of those features from the feature list will be released. So there's a lot of different features that they have, such as the ability to use the Windows Store, which will give you access to the Xbox Play Anywhere. So if you have like an Xbox One, that is highly beneficial because you can buy your game once, play it on your local machine if you have a decent machine. Like I have a decent enough gaming machine at my house. Then I could run it on LiquidSky when I'm on the go, and then I could play it on my Xbox if I'm in the living room and just want to play casually. So you have a lot of options when the Windows Store comes out. There's not a lot of AAA games on there, but there are some games that are already supporting the Xbox Play Anywhere, which is a pretty cool thing. Another major update is the Twitch one-click button streaming. With right now, they didn't want to put a bunch of bandwidth usage through the clients while they're still having a lot of issues with not only the utilization of their servers being nearly maxed out, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but with all the bugs and so on and so forth. So that'll be another feature coming after the Mac client is currently when they're estimating. And another huge thing that I'm personally very, very excited for is USB pass-through. So it sounds like that's going to be another thing that's after the Mac client. So I was kind of hoping that it'd become a little earlier, but that's going to be a very interesting ability to have the full USB pass-through. They say that it's already built, but they're working on a panel to allow you to choose which devices that the LiquidSky client will have access to. So not all USB devices, not necessarily all USD devices will be passed through to LiquidSky if you don't want those to be done. And they're trying to work on something to, I guess, discourage people from trying to stream a game from a USB flash drive, because that simply won't be a good experience. I mean, unless it's a very super lightweight game, but then you could simply just copy it over, I would say. Streaming, unless you have a massive upload, I don't foresee, being able to stream a game from your local external hard drive will be a viable solution at all. Even with a large upload, you're still going to have the latency issues with doing that. So anything like that, you're really going to be better off just simply copying the files over. So they sound like they wanted to do something to kind of discourage that, because it will just result in a poor experience on the end user's half. But they mentioned that those features are kind of at least in the works or nearly done, ready to be deployed. But with all the bugs, they don't, and especially seeing some bugs happening with the USB pass-through, and they wanted to get all the current bugs already cleaned up, because it's probably going to introduce another Pandora's box of bugs once that is released. So beyond that, boarding groups, the news on boarding groups. Boarding groups are expected to start opening up next week. They're not promising that, but that's their current plan right now, assuming that everything goes on schedule with the bug fixes that they're working on. They haven't had a perfect track record with being on schedule, but they have done very good with in the last week of LiquidSky being released last Friday to now. There's been a massive improvement in the service. A lot of bugs have been fixed, as a ton of people won't hit the service all at once. So they are making progress, and while there were some pretty major bumps on the road, a lot of the major issues are starting to be solved. So the boarding groups, with those, they only have advertising partners in select regions. So they're going to try to lean towards getting people in the boarding groups access in areas with those advertising partners, simply because if you're a free user, that's how you're going to actually be able to play if you don't plan on buying credits. And if you do plan on buying credits, you could already do that right now anyways and get instant access. So with that in mind, that's kind of what their thoughts are. Also, another ability that will be released in the future, and kind of in the feature set kind of order of things, is the ability to change data center. So it is something on the table, which will be pretty useful, especially if you're traveling. You're not always going to be close to your closest data center. So one thing he mentioned, and this is kind of resonating with my test results, is the number of cores actually isn't changing between the gamer and the pro. So you're actually not getting more performance out of the GPUs themselves. You're just getting that the VRAM increased, and you're not sharing it with as many people. So there is some consistency improvements in there, and my Metro Last Light really shows that in the enhanced benchmark test that I do. So definitely check that out if you're interested in that, and that'll give you insight into why I strongly recommend playing on gamer as opposed to elite. There are benefits to elite still, especially if you're using it for non-gamer purposes, such as rendering that is heavily CPU bound. That'll be greatly benefited from the elite plan, because it does have the 12 CPUs, or the 12 logical processors, not 12 CPUs. And sometimes I hear those referred as to straight up cores. I'm not exactly sure how LiquidSky is handling that, but sometimes, a lot of times, the Xeons are both, almost always they have cores and threads. So with the logical processors, that includes both. And while there isn't a lot of difference between the performance of a thread as opposed to a core, sometimes the core itself might have a little bit of edge. So that's why I always try to emphasize that always state logical processors, not necessarily cores, because while we have access to 12 logical processors, that it might still be 6 cores and 12 threads total, though, as our 12 logical processors. But just something to keep in mind, a little bit deeper in depth. There's not a huge difference between the performance of a core and thread, but especially when you get to virtualization, there have been some reports of that actually having some impact on the actual performance. Not really on the scale that we're probably seeing with gaming, because a lot of games aren't really CPU bound. And when you get to the point on the Pro and the Elite, you're having so many CPU cores that isn't going to be as big as an impact. Although if you are planning on doing like Twitch streaming with OBS as opposed to the one-click streaming, or to do YouTube or so on and so forth, because they mentioned Twitch one-click, they didn't mention like YouTube if that's what you want to output to, or Beam.pro, which is Microsoft service for live streaming. There isn't a lot of I don't know if that will be included in their one Twitch or one-click streaming, or if that is limited to just Twitch. So you would have to use OBS, which will use CPU. So you definitely want to start off on the Pro plan and possibly use Elite. That might be another good use case for Elite, is streaming from your LiquidSky client with OBS, or what is the other one that I use OBS, but I think some people use XSplit. I think that's what it's called. But OBS is awesome. It's great. I love it, and that's what I personally use. So with the Elite, kind of following the vein of the Ian mentioning that the Gamer and the Pro don't actually necessarily increase the actual cores of the GPU. The Elite, essentially, you have the entire graphics card to yourself. He said, essentially, I don't know exactly what that mentioned. He didn't elaborate. I wasn't able to watch the live show, so I couldn't really ask a question. I had to watch the recording on Twitch. So I'm kind of curious what it essentially means. I'm assuming it means you pretty much have, or you do have the entire graphics card to yourself. So that is where, and in my Metro Last Light review that I'll have next week, or benchmarks that I'll have next week, I do find out that the consistency is the best on the Elite. That is one benefit from the Elite. The max FPS is a little bit higher, but the average FPS and the is pretty much the exact same as Pro. And those only have actually a slight increase over a Gamer, but the consistency, your frame drops when you sometimes have the stutter, and your frame drops to 15 or 20 or 10 FPS because it might be loading a new batch, or a massive explosion went off and a bunch of particles are spawning on the scene. Those little drops in FPS, which make it seem a little less immersive, a little less, breaking your experience a little, because you're going from a nice smooth experience to a little bit slower FPS. Those are a lot more consistent. You don't really have those issues as much on the Pro, and they're pretty much non-existent on the Elite. You do have some dips, and some, the minimum FPS is still there, but it is a lot more consistent. So having that full graphics card and not actually sharing that, it does have some benefits, but I really don't think that the benefits of the double the cost of the Elite really outweigh the Pro, unless you are like wanting to get into like Twitch streaming or something. You have horrible upload at your current house with 100 megabit, and the LiquidSky has a 1 gigabit downlink and a 100 megabit uplink, so a tenth of the uplink, but that is way more than enough for Twitch streaming. So like when USB pass-through gets through, and you can directly do your webcam, and there's ways around this for the time being, but if you can upload your webcam, do your little Twitch stream straight from the LiquidSky computer, you would have that maximum upload. So like I know Twitch, for new people, I think they limit you to 720p, but if you did like YouTube, you could do 1080p just straight flawlessly, because you would have that plenty of upload bandwidth for your stream. So that's pretty interesting possibility for people that aren't readily necessarily able to do like Twitch streaming but want to because of their upload restrictions. I might start doing some more live shows with Thought Provoking Tech, simply because I will have that access for what I'm doing. And Outlook is over here making noises at me. Sorry about that. So another cool thing, they do have Vega hardware, which is another thing I think is going to be a massive improvement for the future of LiquidSky. They can't release it until AMD essentially allows them to. It allows that hardware to go public, but they do have it. They've been testing on it. So I'm interested to see how they roll that into. My personal feeling is that I think they should, because I'm sure they're probably not going to want to completely get rid of the Intel hardware for the Xeons they have and the NVIDIA hardware for the GPUs. I'm sure IBM and their other partners could probably utilize that for other customers out there. But if they wanted to hold on to that stuff still, I think that the Pro would make a good fit for gamer, because it does have that 4 gigabytes of VRAM. That does make a very consistent experience on a wide range of things. Maybe the gamer plan could become like a very cheap, lightweight client for, because there are non-gaming uses for the LiquidSky clients, and it works very good for those use cases too. I can see that as a kind of productivity machine for possibly even businesses to take advantage of, to kind of move people to a desktop as a service client, and not necessarily as a gaming client, and have that gamer essentially have that, because 2 gigabytes of VRAM is be way more than enough than that type of market would ever really need in the foreseeable future. And then that 4 gigabytes of VRAM would make a very good option for the gamers with the increased CPU or the increased RAM that it does have. and an increased CPU is also very important for having a decent gaming experience. I wouldn't really. There are games that run pretty good on the gamer plan, but I think the Pro is really. If you wanted to market something for gamers, I think the Pro is a good starting point on gamers moving forward into the future, especially as games continue to become more and more advanced. Having that as your kind of gamer starting point will have a very strong point for LiquidSky to advertise and have a very strong kind of offering for gamers. First case, because if a gamer gets on the gamer plan now, they might not have the perfect experience and have to upgrade to the Pro plan. If that's kind of their baseline for the gamer mindset, then I think they would kind of put a better foot forward for gamers on the marketing side. And then have the Vega hardware on the Elite and the Pro plans, with the Elite of course having more VRAM, possibly more processing power on the GPU. So you actually see more differences between the Pro and the Elite. That'd be kind of interesting to see how they deploy that. I'm very interested in seeing the Vega things. If I had to do all my benchmarks, and at least the ones that I've noticed were very useful in LiquidSky 2.0 benchmarks, and ones I actually got some great feedback for analysis for. Probably be doing those again when Vega launches later this year. But I do hope these are helpful, all these benchmarks, and finding some pretty interesting information. So another final point is a lot of the LiquidSky staff didn't really expect this. They honestly expected to see Gamer as the heaviest use case performance package, followed by Pro, followed by Elite. It actually seems to be kind of the reverse of that from what they're saying, with the majority of people actually being on Elite by itself and continuing to use that, which is actually hogging up or kind of filling up their capacity, because essentially that is taking 4 times the capacity of what you would have on the gamer plan. Part of that, I think, is the fact that you have all the paying people right now, the people that have skipped the line by paying for one of the plans so that probably might have a disproportionate view of the LiquidSky population, because people that are going to be running ads, you're only going to get a max of 3 hours a day for the gamer plan, which is only 3/4 of an hour. So 45 minutes on the Elite plan per day at a maximum. And with the advertising partners they have now, there's no way you're going to get that, I don't think. There might be some people that are getting 3 hours a day, but I expect those to be the very small minimum, and especially that'll probably diminish even further and be harder to get when more people start getting on that are going to be watching ads, because a lot of people probably aren't even trying to watch ads right now. I expect. Was going to try to do a video on ads, but I haven't been able to do that because I haven't got a dang ad to work yet, except for right off the bat, and I didn't have any footage of that. So one of these days I might kind of review the ad process if I could ever get it to work for myself. So they're seeing a heavy usage of Elite, which is kind of impacting the capabilities and the capacities of their LiquidSky. That's why people are still getting the servers are full error messages. So they are working on making bigger clusters, but for the short term, they've talked about possibly putting a limit or restricting access to Elite. I don't know what they'll do there, if they only allow you to have certain number of hours of usage of Elite in a given week or a given day, or if they'll just say we only have 50 slots in this region for Elite. Once those are gone, you're going to get a message saying it's full, and try using Pro. And they might, I don't know if that's what they'll end up doing. But so far my testing, especially for gaming purposes, is that Elite's not really adding that much. So maybe just go to Pro, and you're going to be spending half your money on it anyways, and you're honestly probably not going to notice much of a difference, if at all, between the Elite and the Pro, and it's in your your own prerogative if you do want to run Elite. But I'm not seeing a lot of differences between Pro and Elite, so I just wanted to pass that message along, and you might actually see that be restricted in the future as they are fighting the full servers and the maxed out capacity, especially when they're wanting to unload another group of people as they start unloading or loading up and allowing boarding passes to have access next week, if that follows. So I might expect that the boarding pass update, when they start allowing people to have access to the boarding pass, might at the same time have an update to restrict Elite access, So I just wanted to make that aware, especially for people that are actively utilizing Elite with their plans. So that's pretty much it for this update. I hope you got some good information from it. It was a little longer than I expected, but there was a lot of information. The stream was like an hour and 15 minutes of actual footage, besides the wait thing that they had going on the first, or like an hour. And I had a lot of comments about kind of the first week or so of testing. I do have some videos coming out, so stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to Thought Provoking Tech and hit the little bell icon. I'll have Cinebench coming first. I started editing that, and then I'll be followed by some benchmarks with Metro Last Light. I will probably be working on some more, but right now I'm working on editing, switching gears to editing, and then I'll be going back to recording some more footage and other non-LiquidSky related content too in the near future. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you found this entertaining as well as informative. If you did like it, make sure you consider liking the video and also sharing on your favorite social media platforms and with your friends that are interested in LiquidSky. Once again, I recommend or suggest or hope that you might consider subscribing and hitting the little bell icon to stay tuned for when Thought Provoking Tech launches new videos. And also, if you are liking the content that I'm producing with Thought Provoking Tech, consider going to patreon.com/thoughtprovokingtech. There will be a link to that in the description below. And supporting Thought Provoking Tech, there are several different options and tiers. The two primary ones that I really want to point out to that I really think are good benefit to you, the user, that's and giving you something back for supporting Thought Provoking Tech. And the first of which is just the $1 tier, and you'll get like a little bit behind the scenes. Right now, like for instance, I've been posting kind of screenshots of kind of my benchmarks, giving you a little bit early insight, a little bit of early analysis. And for the $3 tier, I've been trying to post videos a day or two early, and you'll have access there to unlisted versions of my YouTube videos. So I'm going to try to get the Cinebench one uploaded pretty soon. So that'll be up there. I'm hoping by the time maybe this thing gets uploaded, because my internet's atrocious. So maybe by the time this one gets uploaded, I'll have the Cinebench one up there, not too much farther behind that. So maybe a day or two after this is uploaded. So once again, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you found this entertaining as well as informative, and you did gain something from this video and that you enjoyed it. That's pretty much it. And until next time, Zach out.